What is up, starseeds? I am Sydalexandria, and today we are going to be talking about genetics. Now, this is a pretty controversial topic, so please keep an open mind and try to feel the vibe that I'm giving off, and that is just my opinion, pure love, no offensiveness trying to happen here. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about what I like to call soul genetics and human genetics and how the two go together, how well they go together, more specifically. So when I say human genetics, I'm talking about like your present life. And when I say soul genetics, I'm talking about kind of your past lives. Now, time, if you're into this whole spirituality thing, you've probably heard people say that time isn't linear and everything is happening at once, and that is true to an extent because as humans, this is how we interpret it. So when I say past lives, I'm talking about lives that feel like they were in the past to us. On a higher level, it might be different, but our soul DNA, our soul genetics, come from previous incarnations that our soul has been in, because I believe in reincarnation and that we live lives at the same time. I believe I'm living other lives currently. I believe that you are living other lives currently. Whether or not you believe that is obviously up to you, but that's just what I believe. That's what I talk about on this channel. So, soul genetics, soul DNA is like your past life heritage. What race of being were you in your past life? And human DNA, human genetics is like current human. Like your soul DNA can contain like other human lives in your past, but let's just kind of call it your past genetics and your present genetics, for lack of better terms. We're gonna kind of use these terms interchangeably, so I just want to make that very clear. Past DNA, soul genetics, all that is one thing. And then present DNA, human, because you're a human now. You might have been a human before, but when I say human genetics, we're focusing on this life because we're all human this life. In past lives, we could have been humans on other planets or plants or animals or what have you. So let's get into this. Like I said, kind of controversial, but try to keep your mind open for this one because we are going to be talking about different races of human beings on Earth. But let's look at this from the grand perspective of what race are we? We're humans, okay? It doesn't necessarily matter the color of our skin. Like, let's look at this from a bigger picture, please, for a few minutes. So, here we go. I wrote some notes just so I don't forget anything that I want to say, and I think I just want to get to the point and start off by saying that the reason I'm talking about this is because I have heard people say that dogs only incarnate as dogs and they're just dogs forever. And, you know, same thing with plants and humans and all of these things. And in my opinion, that's just simply not true. That's not how it works. If you want to believe that's how it works, that's totally fine, but I'm just sharing what I believe. Because I have had friends who have very clearly had other incarnations as dogs. And on the grand scale, we are all one. So this just doesn't make sense to me, this idea that if you're a human, you've only ever been a human, even if you believe in this idea of reincarnation. Or if you do something bad, you're automatically gonna go and turn into like fungi or like a mosquito or a cockroach or something. Like, I just don't think that's how it works. So that's why we're talking about it. So I wrote some examples of how I believe this kind of works. I believe you can go from like a plant to then maybe a fish and then maybe a water creature and then something like a mermaid on another planet or what have you, and then some form of human hominoid being that could be off planet or on Earth. Or you could go from like a little plant to a tree to like an elemental being, and then maybe a hominoid human either on Earth or, like I said, another planet. Or you could go from like, I don't know, some type of algae to like a bug, and then maybe eventually either like a reptile and then turn into like a hominoid reptilian, or maybe go from like a bug to like a small animal, and then a bigger animal, and then like an otherworldly animal, and then maybe a hominoid human being. So I think that's kind of how it works. There's always exceptions, but I think it's very, very extremely rare to go from something like a bug or a small water creature to then all of a sudden, boom, human with all of these other abilities compared to that other creature. You see what I'm saying? I think you have to kind of work your way up, because it's very difficult to incarnate from that to this. And I think it causes physical ailments in the body, possibly mental ailments in the body, illnesses, things like this. To take such a big leap, it has to be kind of gradual. And now this brings me to the point of what happens if you make a big leap from one vessel to another. How does that affect you and your body in specific? So this can manifest, I find, as clumsiness sometimes. This is kind of on the less severe end of the spectrum. Or this can manifest as, and this is not a bad thing, okay? It might not be considered the most like desirable thing or healthy thing sometimes, depending on the specific scenario. But I find, now I have always been, I need to give a little bit of background information before I say this, because I don't want to come across as offensive when I'm really not trying to be. So I have always been someone who, like, even in school, like I remember in first grade, you know, we had 4 different like first grade teachers in my elementary school. And even in just this first week of first grade, when I didn't know all of the kids in my school, I could look at them and I could tell you what class they were in without knowing, because I could sense, I don't want to say an aura, but I feel like maybe that might be the easiest to understand, but they had like a color frequency about them, I guess, and most people consider that an aura. I wasn't like seeing an aura around these people. I was just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. Their energy was a certain color, and people with like a blue certain color, they were in the teacher's class who had like this blue energy about them. There was like a red teacher, there was like red aurid kids, I guess, and then there was a yellow teacher, and then my teacher, who was kind of like purple brown, just kind of like green mixed, and like I was in like more of the mixed class. Anyways, so I've always had this ability to kind of sense what category or group people have fallen into, and I'm very good at sensing people's starseed, I don't want to say origins, but where people have had past lives, and even just past lives on Earth. But I can look at someone and be like, oh, Syrian, Anunnaki, or Mantis, Vegan, things like this, Antares, Andromeda, all of them, you guys know. So I have also picked up on lives that are like in other like galaxies, not Milky Way, not Andromeda, like a faraway galaxy. I had a dog who came mainly from this other galaxy, and he's so clumsy and so funny and so silly, and I just know that he actually came from this other galaxy. I have a family friend who I know was like came from the same place as my old dog. Like I've met just a handful of people who, I don't know like the name of this star race, but they're these like kind of big clumsy birds, kind of like from the Up movie. It's like that. There's like a place with all of these birds. Anyways, so random. But that manifests as clumsiness usually if you kind of make the leap from there, then I feel like usually you go to somewhere like Cygnus or something like this, and then kind of incarnate as humans or dogs apparently, but you kind of make the trip to Earth. So there's exceptions, there's big leaps you can make. Sometimes it manifests as clumsiness, sometimes it can manifest as Down syndrome, as autism, as mental illnesses, as physical illnesses or disabilities, or things like this. Severe mental health issues, severe physical chronic pain, because your soul genetics and your human genetics don't align as well. They aren't as compatible. Your body, your human genetics, kind of rejects your soul and your soul genetics, or vice versa. And that's just what happens. And it's not a bad thing, it's just a less desirable thing usually. And if you think about it, I saw this video a couple weeks ago my friend sent me, and it was said in the most loving way that people with Down syndrome are so happy. Like, they're just enjoying life. Like, they come from this higher place, this higher realm, and it's just not as compatible with their current life's human genetics. And I can see how this might be triggering for some people, and I am sorry, I'm not trying to come across this way. This is just what I believe, and I'm sharing it because I think this might be extremely comforting for some people as well, and I'm hoping that that outweighs the uncomfortability for other people. So there's that. Anyways, I think the only other thing I want to say, which is a big part of this video, is I do want to go over these races of Earth humans and common themes and trends, I guess. When I say trends, I'm not talking about trendy. I'm talking about reoccurring themes that I'm seeing because, like I said, I have this ability to kind of read people very easily. I don't dive into their Akashic records without their permission. I feel like or subconsciously, just when I see people on the street, they kind of already have a little bit opened up. Maybe the front door to their house is not unlocked, but a window is cracked, and I get, without desiring it, it just comes to me when I see people. It's kind of like sometimes if there's a strong essence, if someone is obviously very strongly Pleiadian, it's like it's written on their forehead almost for some people, you know? Same thing goes with a lot of other different star races and star people. So these are themes and trends that I have seen. And then recently, within this past year, within this past few months especially, I have discovered that other people actually agree with me. So this has reassured me and led me to believe that this isn't as an offensive thought as I thought it was, and it's actually okay, and it's actually like galactic history and galactic knowledge. So that's why I finally feel comfortable enough to share it. And we are going to kind of go down this list. So number one is that Black people often have had past lives in Sirius and as Anunnaki beings. Those are like the top two common starseed galactic lineages for Black people, for Africans, or just for island people who have lots of melanin. And those are very powerful star races, like Sirians, Anunnakis, the creator gods, like these powerful Sirians. They very often incarnate as Black people because their DNA is just their soul genetics is the most compatible with this current life human genetics as a Black person. This is a trend that I have seen my whole life, honestly, and other people are talking about it too. And then number two, I want to point out that Middle Eastern people very often used to have incarnations as Vegans. They have vegan genetics very strong, and this is because I think Syrians originated, I believe, from vegans, and often they have blue skin. There are so many different colors now, but the original Vagans and the original Syrians, I believe, had like a blue skin texture, and then in this density that manifests as darker skin. Okay, and then number 3 is that Asian people often had incarnations as Arcturians, and also other things like Procyon, Vagan, but mainly Arcturian. And that's interesting because Arcturians kind of have a bit of a different lineage other than Lyra. Hopefully you are familiar with a little bit of galactic history, or just maybe you like have this remembrance in you, maybe I'm sparking this now, that most of the hominoid beings, hominoid means like human, like 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, and like torso and all that usually. Hominoid beings, human beings, originated from Lyra, and I'm actually going to insert this picture by Lyssa Royale, who wrote The Prism of Lyra, this book that is great, that talks about galactic history, highly recommend. So as you can see, we originated from Lyra, but the Arcturians kind of have a bit of a different history. So I think that's interesting that Asians have usually Arcturian past lives. And then number 4 is that Native American people often originated or had other lives, past lives, in the Pleiades. And think about the significance of the Pleiades in Native American culture. And also, I believe, lots of other things. This is where it kind of gets like this and this and this and this. So usually like Pleiadian, but I also feel like some Procyon, some Syrian, some Orion, some other things. Obviously, you can be anything, but mainly the influence of the Pleiades. And then number 5 is like Latin, Hispanic people. Usually the Pleiades, and if you think about the name Maya, Mayans, the star, and the Pleiades, Maya. And the Pleiades is such a big star cluster. There's more than 7 stars. It's not just the 7 sisters. There's many more stars. You could say that there's 7 main ones. You could say that there's 2 main ones, but there's lots. And also like Syrian and Vagan, other lives too, Andromedan, Antares. Yeah, there's lots. And then number 6, this is like the last kind of category of race of humans that I'm going to be talking about. So like Caucasian, white people, mainly like Lyran and Pleiadian, kind of obviously, because there's more than just like white, blonde hair, blue eyes Pleiadians. There's black Pleiadians. It's diverse, you guys. But generally, white people have strong Lyra, Pleiades, Orion, Vulpecca, Cygnus, Aquila, Venus, Alpha Centauri, Antares, Andromedan genetics. Lots of Andromedan. But I do want to point out that like these other ones, like Orion, like I see Orion starseeds across all races of humans on Earth right now. I see Antares starseeds across all races of humans on Earth right now. I see Mantis starseeds across all races of humans on Earth right now. Andromedan, same thing. Vulpecca, like Pleiadian, Syrian, all of this. Like I had a recent Syrian past life, but I'm white mainly right now. I'm actually like a mutt. I'm mixed with everything pretty much. I took an ancestry DNA test and everything. Do I regret giving them my DNA? I don't have any regrets, but if I did, that would be the main one for sure. This was like a big topic, genetics. Very sciencey, but also very out there because this isn't traditional science we're talking about. However, I do believe that this could definitely be backed by science, because why else would I be talking about it? I'm gonna stop talking now. Peace out.